And I get pregnant, I tell him I'm pregnant, and he's just not supportive at all. He actually wanted me to end my pregnancy and have an abortion. And I said, absolutely not. He was not the only person that suggested that. There were some other people close to me that said, like, oh, you're in your prime, like you just left your government job, you're getting started in your real estate career. Like, I would just go ahead and have an abortion and keep it moving. And I was like, I'm not gonna lie, in those moments, that's where the enemy can really get in your mind, and you're like,
Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I have a special guest, my friend Rondelle. I have wanted to start sharing, I've shared my story on my channel. It's Molly's story, but I've also wanted to start featuring other people who have stories that are like overcoming stories where God's worked in their life and they've gone through a difficulty and God's brought them through that. So today I'm going to have my friend Rondelle share. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
thank you, Molly. I just want to honor you and just thank you for all the work you do on your platform. I just love your videos. Like, I love your transparency. I love how diverse you are. I just love it all. So I just wanted to honor you for a second before I dive into me.
Oh,
But for those who don't know me, I am Rondelle Martin, and you may have seen me in Molly's comments or around YouTube under my name, Daily Dell. And I am a single mother. I have a son who is 5. He's actually about to be 6 in November. I'm a native of the Washington, D.C. area, but I live in Atlanta now. And I just love the Lord. I'm a homeschool mom. I'm a special
yes,
needs mom. I know, right? It's like,
I love
that's
it.
another reason why we connected, because I homeschool. But yeah, it's just like, I love the Lord. I homeschool. I'm first generation American. My parents are from Guyana, South America. I'm just like a diverse ball of just everything. So, and most importantly, I love to encourage women. And I also love to talk about Christianity from a millennial standpoint, because there are certain things I really believe our generation is up against that our parents and grandparents didn't necessarily have to ponder about or navigate. And so if and when you come to my channel, you'll usually see those kind of things, like candid conversations, topics that may be swept under the rug or maybe just kind of breeze past, but I like to like sit and actually think about it and hopefully encourage people to just thrive, be encouraged, and just really see life from maybe other perspectives. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yes, you guys are going to want to subscribe to Rondelle's channel because you are a gem. You are so encouraging. And so she does live videos a lot and they are just a whole mood. It's like girls' night, like at home. And I love it. It's so fun.
I love talking with y'all.
Yes, it's so fun. So today we're going to kind of focus on your single mom story because before we got on here and started recording, I was just telling Rondelle, I'm like, there's not enough stories being told of single moms that have gone through it and how God has brought them through it. And I know there's a number of single moms that follow my channel, and I just know that your story is going to encourage them. So take us back a little bit to like before you became a single mom. What was life like for you at that time?
Man, whew, that seems like so long ago. It's like, it's like what's life like? But
Yeah, what's life like without kids? I mean, can we even remember? Life's so much better with kids.
it is. It really is. Honestly, I was just telling one of my other sisters in Christ how much I fall in love with being a mom every day. And it's no walk in the park. So for those of you who may not be moms yet and you're fantasizing about it, don't idolize it, because it's no walk in the park. But it is one of God's greatest blessings I feel we can experience as women. And I mean, there's no words to put into it. But before I was a mom, I was one of DC's, like, I was a DC prototype. Basically, I worked for the federal government for almost 8 years. I graduated from college and just rolled from my internship into full time. And so I climbed the corporate ladder very quickly. I went from basically making as a student about 29 to 40,000 a year throughout my college years to a little over 90K a year. And I was also doing side hustles. So basically at that time in my peak, I was making about $100,000 a year. At the age of 26, I was the records officer for the National Park Service, overseeing over 400 offices throughout the US, Guam, Puerto Rico. I mean, it was like, I was just living my best independent boss babe life. And, I was traveling, I had my own place, I had the cars. Like, I was living the dream that society would say, yes, this is what you should want. But I always knew that there was more that God created me for. Not to say that people that go through the government and climb the ladder, like that might be God's path for you, but I knew for me, I was more of like what I'm doing now, like a community builder, organizer, mentor type. And I always knew that I had a heart for entrepreneurship. I always saw myself having my own business or at least working for myself. And so May 2015, Mother's Day weekend, I just took the leap of faith. I put in my resignation. And I remember my mom came in to tell me, oh, we're ready to go eat. And I was like, I quit my job. And she was just like, what? What are you talking? She was so shocked. But at the same time, my parents have always been super supportive and all about just like following what God leads you to do, even if it doesn't make sense. And so June 1st, 2015, started my basically my gap year. And I was just doing me. I was discovering my passions, trying to figure out, okay, what's my purpose in this season? I got my real estate license. I had an online boutique through Poshmark for a little time. I was selling jewelry, doing hair, and just doing like all the things and enjoying my time off. So that's essentially what my life was like. It was all about me climbing the ladder, making the money, doing the things. And then I became a mom.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize that you were doing all that at such a young age, like in your middle 20s. That's crazy. So take us to right, like when you're a single mom, like or when you find out you're pregnant, what happened with all of that? Like,
So I was in a relationship I had no business being in. I always tell ladies, like, it's easy for us to blame the father of our children, especially if it was a tumultuous situation. But we also have to look within ourselves and take accountability, because a lot of times, if we're honest, we probably ignored red flags, or we were in relationships that we knew were not honoring to God, which was my story, or whatever the case may be. And so I was in that relationship. Mind you, it was a rebound relationship that I got into after a failed engagement, another story for another day. And so I met him right after, and I just jumped in, and it was not honoring to God at all, not even in the least bit. And I get pregnant. I tell him I'm pregnant, and he's just not supportive at all. He actually wanted me to end my pregnancy and have an abortion. And I said, absolutely not. He was not the only person that suggested that. There were some other people close to me that said, like, oh, you're in your prime, like you just left your government job, you're getting started in your real estate career. Like, I would just go ahead and have an abortion and keep it moving. And I was like, like, I'm not gonna lie, in those moments, that's where the enemy can really get in your mind. And you're like, well, this would be convenient. Nobody would know. I could carry on with my life. I wouldn't have to deal with the shame or the humiliation or trying to figure out how to prepare for a life. And I do want to express sympathy and compassion for women who have faced that decision and who have possibly gone through with it. I don't want to condemn you, because I understand in that moment how you can feel like, I can't do this, especially if you don't have support, if you don't have income, if you're trying to figure yourself out. And just know that God still loves you, that there is forgiveness, that there is safe haven, and there is community out there. So don't ever beat yourself up and feel guilty about it. But also for women who might be at the precipice right now, I do want to encourage you to really, really seek assistance. There is more assistance out there than you can even imagine. If you don't know where to go, feel free to contact me, and I'm sure Molly wouldn't mind as well. But I just wanted to say that, because in this society and culture we live in today, it is so easy to just like take that route. And life is so precious. And now that I look at my son, it's like, I'm grateful for all the ups and downs. But needless to say, he wanted me to have an abortion. I said no. And he basically told me, well, I'm not going to help you raise this child. I'm not going to be around. And that was that. And we basically broke up at that point. I didn't talk to him again until I found out the gender of the baby, that I was having a boy. And he basically was like, congrats, and that's it. And he didn't want anything to do with it. And I went through a lot. I went through a lot of depression. I struggled with worthiness. I struggled with just feeling like, can I recover from this? Like, what is my life going to look like? I felt so disappointed in myself, because I felt like I fell so hard from glory, because, I went to school and I got all the high marks and the accolades, and I was always voted like most likely to be like woman president and most likely to be a millionaire. And people always had these high hopes for me, and they looked up to me. And then it's like, here is this thing that I can't even hide from. Like, you can't hide a pregnancy, but for so long. And I just felt ashamed. I cried. I was depressed. I remember I had to get on food stamps. I almost got on welfare, but thankfully I have a supportive family. But I remember going to the social services and family services office, and they were like, "Do you need anything? Let us know." And I just remember standing there and crying because in my mind I thought I'm a statistic, like, and obviously I'm an African American woman, and there is a lot that of stereotypes that come with that, being a Black single mother and just a negative connotation attached to that, plus, being a professing Christian, plus falling from grace. And so I remember one night I was in the house just like crying out to God and just asking him to help guide me with this life because I was terrified and whatnot. And I just remember feeling such a heavy like presence of God in the room. Like I really felt like I was being hugged by the Holy Spirit. And it was just like God was like, it's okay, like I'm here. There's purpose for that life in you. If I did not want you to have this child, I wouldn't have opened your womb at this time. There's a reason why I opened your womb at this time, regardless of how the child got here, there's purpose in his life. And so, or the baby's life, because I didn't know it was a boy at the time. And so needless to say, I went through my pregnancy, had a lot of help from my church. I can't thank my church enough at the time. Delray Baptist in Alexandria. Hey, y'all. But Alexandria, Virginia. They were so welcoming. I honestly have never experienced the love of Christ as much as I have there. My church, my home church in Maryland is a very close second. But as far as like just rallying around you in a time where it's easy for you to separate, to isolate, to, make decisions that can have bigger consequences down the road, they said, no, you're not leaving the church. Cause I was new there. I was like, I don't know if you want me to become a member, I'm pregnant. They were like, no, we need you to join, and it's not about just having a body in the pew, but we really understand that you're going to need support in this season. And they helped my family move because they moved like 2 or 3 times when I was pregnant. They helped us move for free, packed up, got the truck, everything. They helped us buy cars. They took me to all my doctor's appointments because I was a high-risk pregnancy. So I had like 5 different doctors, and they were not close because the DC area is very, spread out and places are far. And so even if they have to drive an hour to take me, they didn't complain, didn't ask for gas money. To this day, one of the guys from the church is kind of like a grandfather to my son, Christian. And he would just like send him gifts every now and then, or just send things to help out. Like every month, he's just finding ways to be supportive. And it's just like, I'm so grateful for that season. God knew I needed to be there at that time because I literally was being told to go there for like a year. And I was like, I like my church in Maryland because I didn't want to leave it. So I was driving over the bridge, going an hour away. And my friend was like, you need to go to this church. Like you're wasting gas. I love the church in Maryland too, but you need to go closer to your home. And I finally went and I was like, okay, just to like quiet them up because she kept bothering me about it. And I was so grateful that I went because who knew 3 months later I would need them in such a way. They never made me feel bad to this day. They never, embarrassed me or made me go up on the stage and confess. None of that. Like just love. And,
Don't
so
you think
that
a
helped me a
little
lot.
bit, sorry to interrupt you.
But you're fine.
I just was thinking of like at church, I feel like we have these fears when we're going through something challenging because the exact same fears you had with my divorce. I was like, everyone's going to ask me like why I'm by myself. Like I'm going to be just so embarrassed. And like, they were so loving and accepting, and all these fears I had built up, like we're not even real.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm sure you've heard the acronym fear is false evidence appearing real. That's exactly what it is. Like we build up all these things in our mind where it's like, oh, this is going to happen. And this, that, the third. And it's like half of that, majority of it never happens. And then you're just like, why was I worrying? Like it's such a waste of time and energy to worry and be anxious. So yeah.
Yeah, one day I was at church and I was just like, and I've been at my church a long time since I was 8. And I was looking out at my church and I was like, you know what? This church is full of people with different stories, we all have brokenness. And sometimes we think like, oh, I can't be at church unless like I have my life together. And it's like, no, like that's what Jesus came for, to help us like heal our brokenness, and for us to be united and encourage and support each other. So I love you sharing that about the church because I want single moms to know that. I remember one time I did this single mom question and answer on my Instagram, and someone said like, how do I find a church, or how do I get into going to church? And there is that fear and that anxiety of like, what if they reject me? And it's like, don't listen to the devil's lies because he wants to isolate you.
Exactly. And I will say too, like, the church, the bad press about the church gets more airtime than the good press about the church. And I mean, I'm one that discusses the things too. Okay, so I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not absolved, because they do need to be discussed. We do need to discuss the bad aspects of church, because we're not perfect. But I think that's what we have to remember. Even though the church is filled with flawed people, it's like they're people that truly have the heart of God. I will bet you that there are like 10 great churches for every bad church, if not more. Like there's so many churches filled with the love of Christ. So I wouldn't be fearful. If you're a single mom out there, try it. Like do a search, look at reviews, maybe ask a friend of yours. I'm telling you, the church is needed. Like if it wasn't for them, I would have been really down bad. So they really helped me out.
Yeah, and that's the same for me too. My church has been so supportive. Like yeah, it's like kind of like shocking. I'm like, whoa, they have like helped me out financially without me ever asking, like just people being there for me, like loving on my kids, like offering to babysit, like all these things. It's like I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. So tell
Exactly.
us a little bit. So you find out you're pregnant, you're not with this boyfriend anymore, then what happens?
So I tell my mom, because I told him we broke up. I had my little depressive state for like a day. And then I told my mom, and then she takes me to the social services office. I'm still kind of up and down with my mental health. Like sometimes I'm excited, other times I'm depressed. So it wasn't really like a joyous time. And then that made me feel bad too, because they say like your mood when you're pregnant affects the baby. So now I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm feeling down. My fetus is gonna not, be born like happy and a joyous baby. Like I'm just like blaming myself. But basically at that point I had to decide, what am I going to do with my life? Because I was in this gap year doing me, living my best life, and now it's like, okay, you need money, like a child costs, And even though the social services office was like, hey, if you need to get on welfare, let us know and stuff. I know that the list was so long, because I will say welfare in Virginia is actually like pretty decent. Like the housing is pretty decent. The accommodations are pretty decent. If I had to choose a state to be on welfare, it will probably be Virginia.
Okay.
But I was like, well, my mom and my sister aren't kicking me out, so I don't really need to go that deep. And so I'm like, okay, let me see if I could get a 9 to 5. Because I had lived on my own when I was not a mom and I was working in the government. I don't know if I mentioned that. And I moved back home after my dad got really sick and things like that. And so I was like, well, with a child, I kind of want to move back out, because we were in a really, really small apartment at the time. It was really tight. And I was like, the easiest way for me to do that would be to get a 9 to 5, because when you work for yourself, places want to see like 2 years of pay stubs often, or income oftentimes. So I went on interviews, and I got great offers and everything, but I was like, oh man, now that I've had a taste of freedom, like I don't I don't want to go back. Like I'm looking, they're showing me the office I'm gonna be sitting in. I'm just like, it's nice. I like the carpet, but no, like I can't do it. I can't do it. And one job in particular, it was in the Reagan building downtown. Beautiful building. I mean, so many great things in there. And I've always wanted to work there before being pregnant and being a mom. And here I am pregnant, and they're like, yeah, this is gonna be your office, and you're gonna get breakfast and lunch on us, and this and
Wow.
that. And I'm just like, ooh, tempting, because I love to eat, y'all. I love to eat. So I'm just like,
I
that's
would be
tempting.
excited about that too. I'd be like, oh wait, what now? Show me the menu.
And so I was like, you almost had me, but I'm gonna have to say no. And then they were like, well, can you just think about it tonight and we'll call you and check in tomorrow? I was like, okay. So I'm thinking about it, I'm praying. I just was like, Lord, I don't want to go back to this. Like, you can't let me have this taste of freedom and then go back,
Yeah.
especially with a child. And they called me, and I was like, I don't think I could do it. They were like, we'll add on $15,000 to your salary. I mean, they're throwing everything.
Wow.
Like, they're like, we need you. And I'm just like, no, like, it was tempting. And that's how I knew like that season of my life was over. Like I didn't have the grace for it anymore. I didn't have the patience, the tenacity. So I'm starting to look around and things like that. And I remembered my ex-boyfriend, my son's father, had told me that he was doing gig work, which for those who don't know is like Uber, Lyft. At the time, I don't think DoorDash was around, because this is like 2016. So I can't remember if DoorDash and stuff was around, but he was doing Uber at the time and Lyft. And so I was like, let me look into this. So I look into it. I see that they had the option to lease a car if you needed it. At the time, you could have even bought a car through them. I have my own car though, but I like the options and flexibility. So I went ahead, applied for it, got approved in like less than a week, because those things are super quick. And I started working, and I was making good money, and I was able to work around my schedule, because being high risk with all those appointments, it's like I needed that. So That's how I got into self-employment. I decided not to really pursue the real estate anymore because there's a lot of fees that come with it after you get your license and you get in a brokerage and stuff. And I was like, I really don't want to be walking around showing homes when I'm pregnant. So I'll just table that for now. And I was still kind of selling clothes on Poshmark at this point, but I was slowing down because I was actually thinking of growing with it and getting inventory. But I was like, the gig work's easier. It's less stress. I could just work when I want, and it's really, really low effort. So I just stuck with that, and I'm still doing it to this day. Honestly, I'm still doing it, but that's what got me started in that. And then I kind of trickled my way over the years into content creation and doing what I do now.
Okay, there's two things you said that I love because I 100% relate to, and I want to just camp on for a second. You said a low stress job and you wanted something with flexibility. And that's 100% what I'm doing with cleaning houses. I'm like, I needed that low stress job when I'm like going through my separation and divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And being a single mom is just stressful. There's no way around it. So that is so key. And then the flexibility, it's like what you said when you went to these beautiful office buildings and you're like, you know what, like I've tasted what it's like to work for myself. And so I hope that single moms know there's a lot of options out there to be creative with how you can earn money. It doesn't have to
Oh, yes.
necessarily be a 9 to 5. Like what you said, there's just so many, and especially like even since COVID, like with the internet getting more and more and people working from
Mm-hmm.
home, like I just want to encourage any moms that are like, what do I do for work? Like, think outside of the box, ask
Yeah.
other moms what they're doing because I've gotten ideas from other single moms, and just
Yeah.
look into options because I think flexibility is like when my kids are sick, I just call I text my cleaning clients and say, I can't come in today. My kids are sick or I'm sick, and it's done. It's over with. If I worked at a
Yes.
9 to 5, they'd be pressuring me, go find somebody else to
I
fix it.
know.
We need you, guilt tripping me. And it's like, I don't have any of that. Thank the
Exactly.
Lord. I'm so thankful.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so low and it's so low stress, and I love it. Like I just don't go online. I would say the only downside that I do miss of the 9 to 5 is the fact that of paid vacation. So like when
Yeah.
I'm going on a trip, I have to, hustle harder
Yes.
beforehand just to cover. But other than that, like I'll take that. And then like you said, there's remote jobs that have flexible schedules, so
Yeah.
if flexible scheduling is something you need, which 9 out of 10 as a mom, especially a single mom, you're gonna need, look it up, go on LinkedIn, Indeed. Like there's all types of like ways to make money nowadays that don't have to literally drive you crazy, because I can't. I need my I need my peace.
Yeah, I mean, I did Rover for a little bit. Like, I have someone I clean for that I house sit for, and they let me bring my kids, and like that's another side. There's just so many options like that that people
Yeah,
don't really talk about as much. I mean, that'd be a good video idea.
I know
Ways
it.
flexible ways to make money as a mom because yeah, I have another single mom friend and she'll buy things on Facebook Marketplace and she has an eye for that. She resells things. She's like, I got this for free and now I sold it for $200. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit where you were at with the Lord when you find out you're pregnant, or like when you first have Christian, your son, like, was there any frustration towards God or like, why me? Why am I going through this? Like, how did you feel about that?
I can honestly say for majority, if not all of my tumultuous situations in life, I don't think I've ever thought, why me? Like, I
Hey,
don't
you're
think
more mature than I am. Because I sure have.
that is hilarious. But I'm thinking, like, had that ever happened to me? I don't think I have. Maybe once or twice, maybe, because I could be forgetting. But I think for me, my reflex is like, God, I need you. Like, I'm sorry, because when I got pregnant, because I was in like different spaces. Before I got pregnant, I was just like, I was saved, but I wasn't really invested in my spirituality. Like I might go to church whenever I had a chance because I was in Virginia, and like I said, my home church was still in Maryland. And so it was like 45 minutes, maybe an hour drive. So I would try to go, but honestly, like at that point, I'm doing me. Like if I had a late night Saturday night hanging out with friends, I'm just not getting up early to go to church. Like it's just one of those things. I might watch online, definitely wasn't serving, but I was trying. Like I would read the word here and there, but very like in and out, intermittent. And then once I got pregnant, I like ran to God because I was clearly having a good time. I was clearly doing me. And I was just like, okay, at this point, Lord, I'm sorry, for engaging, in sex outside of marriage. And I'm sorry for like doing these things. And, I knew it was wrong, but I was still doing it because in the time, sin is fun. Like, it's just like, we're lying if we say sin is not fun. Like, our flesh likes sin, but it has so many impacts. And so I was like, Lord, I'm sorry. Like, I knew this was wrong. I kept doing it. And now I'm dealing with the consequences, but I'm ready to like improve. And there's always forgiveness in Christ. So if you are going through something and you're feeling condemnation and stuff, that's not God. Like, God does not condemn us in that way where it's like, oh, you're so sinful, get away from me. Like, that's not it. So if you're feeling that, that's the enemy. And so in my pregnancy is when I got close to God, because I became a member of Delray Baptist. And then I was really supported by them. And, being pregnant, you're just, even if you were not in a church, you're just not as active as you were 9 times out of 10. So it gives you a little bit more downtime to like read or do different things. So I was like more in my word. I got into the membership. I joined a small group, and then I was finding little ways to serve others. So they had a really good, and they still to this day have this, a really good like Google chat board or something. So anything you need in the church, anybody needs, it goes in there. It doesn't matter if it's like, hey, does someone have some extra butter to, can someone give me a ride to the airport or anything? And so I would just scan it, and if there was something I could do, I would volunteer, like, okay, yeah, I could pick you up, or I could do this, I could do that, I could cook you a meal, whatever. And so that helped just draw my heart back to God, because it's like, while they're loving on me, I'm loving on them. I'm immersed in this community that is like, I'm not doing it out of like fear of condemnation, or again, I gotta look so holy, so let me serve and get close to God. It was like really just like, okay, like I'm relearning my love for God. And so that really is what catapulted me too. That's why I say my pregnancy had so many purposes, because it really got me back closer to God and made me, I would say, really get for real about my faith. Like, I was saved, but now it's like I've grown so much since 2016 to now. So I don't think my growth would have accelerated like that had I not been pregnant.
So from there, I know you've mentioned this a few times in your other videos, and I was excited to talk to you about this, but you've talked about going through a season of homelessness. Was that what point was that in this part of your story?
So I've been homeless twice in life. I was homeless before I was a mom in 2009. My family actually lost my childhood home. And so a friend of ours in DC let us live in one of his homes next door to him. And so that gave us some months to get on our feet. But my most recent homelessness that I talk about more often is when my family relocated to Atlanta. So at this point, my father is in Guyana, where my family's from, because we couldn't afford to keep him here anymore. They didn't want to give him his disability. Again, another story for another day. But at this point, my family in the house is basically condensed to my mom, me, my son, and my sister. And we moved to Atlanta. That was something that we felt the Lord was calling us to, because I love Virginia. Don't get me wrong. I love Virginia. There's so many fond memories there. I would live there still to this day. But for opportunity and where I felt God was leading me, especially in this realm of being like a YouTuber and a content creator, there's not so many opportunities in Spotsylvania, Virginia. Like, it's a small town, we still have ice cream with the sheriff. Like, it's one of those towns, like very homely, very like, hey y'all, so you're not gonna get the traction you need. And so when we prayed and fasted, God was like, move to Atlanta. And we actually have a family member down here who is extremely successful, like wealthy, all of that. Plus other cousins and friends were like, yeah, move down here and stuff. But this wealthy family member was the one to really like be the push. Like, if you come, we're going to help and this and that. Well, lo and behold, everything's moving in motion. We're on the way down here. We have found a house we liked, applied for it. The realtors, both ours and the listing agent, were like, it looks like y'all gonna get in, which they were just, giving us encouragement based on their years of experience. I don't blame them at all. I don't blame anybody at all, but especially them. And we're in the U-Haul driving down. My sister's already down here from the Greyhound. We get a call saying that the owners of the home want $7,000 more, and they're only gonna agree to a 6-month lease. Otherwise, we can't get the house. And I'm just like, that doesn't even make sense. One, if I had $7,000, I'd be buying a home right now. I would not be renting. And two, like, why would I sign a 6-month lease? Because that means that any drop of a dime, you could be like, oh, you got to go. And then we got to try to find a new home. Doesn't make sense, especially when you're relocating. And so We said no, and we had nowhere else to go because at this point, the family member is not answering the phone. Our other cousins, we already knew they didn't have the space and the resources to really help out. And so we just went from motel to motel, hotel to hotel. Thankfully, my brother has a lot of connections. So he got us really, really cheap discounts to keep us from being off the street. And we were homeless for just about 2 months. I remember like my only prayer for my birthday that year was to get a home. I was in the hotel room praying every day, like, Lord, I just want to have a home for my birthday. I just want to have an address, a bed that I know is mine, a place that I don't have to wonder, how am I going to eat tomorrow? Where am I going to sleep? Because the thing is with children in hotels, a lot of people tend to complain. My son was like 2 at the time. Yeah, he wasn't yet 3, and he turned 3 while we were homeless. And so, he's running, he's jumping, he's doing him, but we would get complaints. So every few days we had to move. Plus, with the vouchers my brother was getting through his friends, we couldn't stay usually past like 3 days. We finally got to Fairfield Inn by Kennesaw State, and the management there, plus my brother, they really worked with us. We were able to stay there for a month, or about 3.5 weeks out of the 2 months of homelessness. And it was a lot of money down the drain. We wasted thousands of dollars because homelessness is expensive. It doesn't take much before you're really in a downward spiral, because you can end up being homeless by something like your credit just isn't up to par to get the right place. And that was one of our problems because of prior rental history that was recorded wrong that we didn't know. And so it affected our rental credit because they look at a whole nother score when you're renting. And it could be a whole bunch of things. So it's not always like you were just financially irresponsible or like you were strung out on or addicted to drugs. And once you're in it, you waste money because you can't cook meals. It's very expensive to stay in anything, whether even if it's a cheaper motel, it still gets pricey, especially when you got to pay the extra fees on top of it. And a lot of extended stay hotels, they are cheap. You can get one for maybe like $400 a month or so, but the area is very sketchy, and it's not someplace you want to be with children and family, or even for yourself as a single person. And so we blew through almost $20,000 to being homeless between applying for places, trying to find a place, trying to survive, moving here, going there, trying to rent trucks, storage, the whole nine. And so I think we got the home that I'm living in now about 4 days before my birthday. It was like 3 or 4 days before my birthday. And it was nothing but God, because literally none of us had jobs. My sister was supposed to get a job. They basically reneged and were like, yeah, we're not giving it to you once we got here. My mom's retired and I've been self-employed, but at the time I wasn't making enough to rent a place on my own and my own income. So we applied, and these homes were built for rent. So they're new homes built to rent, or you could buy. And we apply, we're like, we don't have a job, or, none of us have jobs. Our savings is dwindled. And they gave it to us. I'm like, that's literally nothing but God. Like in every other place, when they like 3 months rent in advance, they gave it to us for a month and a half rent. And it was right in our budget, the only home in this neighborhood, literally within our budget. So I knew it was nothing but God. And he basically showed himself as a provider. And like, you can't depend on people. You really can't. Like you can, but you shouldn't put all your trust in people. And you have to have discernment about who you trust in that way, because sadly, a lot of people say things, but they don't back it up. And so it was just like, I definitely went through a range of emotions. I was like, okay, I'm optimistic usually at first, like, yeah, God's going to make a way. And then, you're in that thing long enough and you're like, okay, God, where are you? Like, where is this going to happen? And at that point, it's like, did I hear you wrong? Like, I could have sworn you said, come here. But yeah, it showed me so many sides of God. It showed me just the strength and endurance of my faith. And it showed me how God is just like, he does exceedingly and abundantly. I literally everything that I prayed for and then some is this house that we're living in now. And he kept us here very well for a season. And now that season's coming to a close and it's very apparent. But we're just grateful for him getting us out of homelessness. And that also affected my view as a mom too, because I felt like, man, I'm failing. Like my son is at the time 3 and he's been through so much for a 3-year-old. Like, but even within that too, I see how God has blessed me with my child, because even to this day, he's very encouraging. There'll be times where I'm crying, even back then, and Christian will come up to me and be like, Mom, why are you crying? And just give me a hug and like literally take his shirt off and like wipe my tears. And so then of course I'm crying even more at that point. Because one thing about me is I'm going to cry. Like, I don't care where it is. And so I'm just like, God, thank you. Like, you just see over time how everything comes together, and how even when you didn't understand it, it's like, okay, I thank you for this child. I thank you for my family. I thank you for all these things, because we're here to stick together. We're here to help each other.
Yes, yeah. I was excited to talk to you about that because like I feel like I've had a heart for homelessness, and part of it I think is I had times in my single mom journey thinking, if I didn't have the help of my parents, if God didn't provide this apartment, like I could have been homeless. Like I mean, my parents were so supportive of me, and I had another family that I lived with for a little while, and you just think about that, it's like, yeah, homelessness is not just people on drugs or alcohol. It's like there's a lot of complexity to it. And I appreciate you opening up and sharing about that, because I guess I didn't ever think about, like, yeah, it can be really expensive to be homeless if you're having to buy food going out and jump from hotel to hotel. But I just told the kids recently, I think it was just yesterday, the apartment that I have, it's like the only way I can afford it is the person that I rent from is a family friend, and they give us affordable rent. And I'm like, you guys, if we didn't have this place, we'd probably still be living with my parents, And I'm like, I think as a single mom, you take everything like as just, you realize just how special it is because you know what it was like to not have that, not,
Mhm.
and you don't take it for granted as much because you're like just overwhelmed with seeing how God has provided. You know what it's like to lack that, I guess,
Yeah.
like you'll
And it's
probably
been,
never look at having a home the same way because of
oh
your
yeah.
experience.
Absolutely not. Like it's like God gives you a new level of grace and understanding with every hardship you go through, and a new level of appreciation. Because like I've always come from a loving and supportive family. I knew that, but the way my mom and sister helped me today, and my brother, is just like wow. Like I'm so grateful, And there's times where I might feel guilty again, or the enemy just tries to tell me like, you should be doing more. But it's like if it wasn't for them, I would not be able to do half of what I do. I wouldn't be able to pour into my businesses and try new things, and be able to do things for Christian the way that I am, because they help so much. And it's never a guilt thing. It's never like, oh, we're doing this or that for you. But it's also humbling, because for me, I was Miss Independent. I had it all. I didn't need anybody. So
Mhm.
asking for help to this day is still very hard for me. I do not like it. I do not like having to come to someone and be like, hey, can you help with this? And I'm always apologizing for like, I'm so sorry for asking stuff, but God's still working on me with that. Like at the end of the day, we all need help in some way, shape, or form. Like you don't have to be superwoman. You don't have to figure it out on your own. Like humble yourself, because closed mouths don't get fed. Like people can't help sometimes and they don't know what you need help with. So don't let pride stop you from getting the assistance that you need.
Yes, yeah. And if people don't have supportive families, then find your people that can be like stand-in family. Because
Yes,
I have single mom friends that they don't have family around, but they've been willing to reach out and ask for help. And you don't you if you never ask people, you don't give them the opportunity to serve you.
hmm,
And the right people will want to serve and will want to help and will step up to the plate.
exactly.
So you just have to reach out and help. Or I mean, reach out and ask for help. Tell us about your new singles in the city group that I think a lot of
Yes.
single moms want to hear about.
Yes, so I am the founder and creator of a group called Single and Saved in the City. The name hit me randomly when I was cleaning one day because I was trying to think of so many names, but it basically is a community life group for Christian single women. And so single moms included. I always say single women and single moms because I feel like sometimes when we think of Christian single women, we think of them without children, but it's like,
Yeah.
even if you're a single mom, you're still a single woman. You were a woman before you were a mom. So it's just like, but if you have kids, you can be a part of the group. And it's basically it was centered around meetups, because I don't have a life, y'all. Like I need to do better with the social life, and I'm like, I need to go out. Like I be working, I be homeschooling, I be doing all the chores, but it's like I want to actually experience life again, like I used to. And so I was like, I want women that are of the same page as me to do these things with. Not to say that everyone you hang out with in life needs to think like you, act like you, whatever. But there's something special when it's like we can hang together and we know our foundation is the same. We all love the Lord. We all have certain foundational principles we stand on, similar journeys. So it just makes it easier. And then being single, we have a little bit more flexibility, even as single moms than like married moms, that have to like check in with their spouse and stuff to honor their marriage. And even though some of them are trying to get in the group, but they support. I'm like, okay, I'll have an event for y'all. But yeah, it's centered around meetups and outings. But we also do other things. So we'll have virtual events, which I have one September 23rd. I don't know if this is going to be before or after that, but you might have missed it. You might have time to join. I don't know when Molly's going to put this video up, but there will be virtual events because I didn't want it to just be for women in Atlanta. Like, obviously the in-person outings will more so be for us, but I wanted it to be a global thing because this is something I really want to get to a point where like we're even having maybe an annual conference or something. Like, I want it to be big where we can really pour into each other. We I share gems about business, I share gems about life, and we have a private Facebook group. So it's really holistic. Like, yes, we're gonna go out, we're gonna hang out, but I'm also gonna like pour into you. I'm actually planning a training about email sales funnels soon. So I want to help you in business, faith, and life. Those are the pillars that my channel centered around, and that I was like, let me just transition that into the group as well, because I want us to thrive in all of those areas. You know, you don't want your faith to be thriving and your business and life is raggedy. You don't want your business to be thriving and everything else. Like, you want it all to be on par. So I just want us to holistically lift each other up, support each other, and encourage each other and inspire each other. You know, sometimes you just need to be in the room with other people. And like you said earlier, how other single moms have inspired you to earn money. Sometimes it's just being around it. It's like, wow, I never thought of that, or I never, saw it from this perspective. So that's what I'm here. I'm just a conduit to bridge sisterhood and Christian single women together.
I'm so glad you shared about that. I'm gonna link in the description all the links to this if you want to join this group. I'm part of it, and I'm so excited. I love the vision for it. So yes, please join. Rondelle's amazing, and I think this group's going to be awesome. So I want to end on just asking you, what advice would you give to any single mom who is watching, who feels like they're just like at rock bottom right now? What would you want them to know? Like, what would you go back and tell yourself at your most vulnerable part of your journey in single motherhood?
I would honestly encourage you that it gets better. I know it sounds cliche, but honestly, like, there's so many times in my life where I look back and I was like, this is it. Like, I'm never going to recover. But here I am on the other side of that situation. And so I heard someone online recently say, I don't know this creator's name, but they said, God allowed you to hit rock bottom so he can show you that he's the rock at the bottom. So it's like, even when you fall, you're not fallen beyond his grace. Like, everything in your life is within God's sovereignty. Everything that happens, even the unforeseen stuff, the stuff that you thought, oh my goodness, I never thought this decision could result in that. Anything you could think of, no matter how wild or crazy, is within his sovereignty. So nothing is catching him off guard. Nothing is shocking him. He has not abandoned you. He's right there with you. He knew it was going to happen before you even knew it was going to happen. And so he is going to get you out of it, and he's going to get the glory out of it. And then he's going to make your life a stage for his glory, meaning that this that you're going through is giving you more grace, like I said earlier, more tenacity, more strength, more understanding. It's showing you a different side to God, because if life is all good, we only know God in one way. But when you go through something, you learn to see God as your healer, as your banner, as the God who sees you, as your provider, as your friend that sticks closer to a brother, as your father. Like, you see him in so many different aspects. And so you're not going through this in vain. Everything I went through, God has not only got me out of it, but he's given me, and not only given me more grace, but he's given me the patience to mentor other people through it, and the knowledge now to help other people. So I would encourage you to not believe that your life is over, because it's not. Every day that you wake up means that there's still more opportunities, there's still more work to do that God is doing in you and through you. And honestly, find an uplifting community, even if it's not through my group, even if it's not through my channel, Molly's channel, whatever. Find a group and definitely connect with people in person. In-person connection is so important. Virtual too. Like, I'm not going to negate virtual, especially after the pandemic. We've seen how powerful it is, but definitely community, and remembering that this is not it for you. Like, every day you wake up with breath in your lungs, there is more to do, and God is not done with you yet.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I feel like that's so huge. Reach out to people. You can't do this alone, but you can do it by God's grace and strength. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on my channel. This has been a real treat, and I know everyone's going to be blessed by your story.
I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to the next interview we do. And I'm glad to be, am I the first?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, on my YouTube channel. I've done interviews on the podcast I had, but yeah, you're my first, I think. So
Oh,
yeah,
yay.
yeah, Zoom interview. I have done in person, but yeah, Zoom. So you're my
Oh,
guinea pig with all my technological. I don't know what I'm doing.
you're
So,
doing great. You're doing great. I can't wait to just, again, see the growth of your channel and just have more of these moments. Like, this is
yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys, we're gonna sign off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Okay.